The last time I heard her voice, it wasn't what she said that got me. It was the sound of her footsteps, sharp, clipped, fast, like she didn't want the floor to remember her, like she wanted to disappear clean. You don't forget a sound like that, not when it's tied to the moment you realize you're no longer part of someone's story. I didn't call out after her, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew it wouldn't change anything. She was already gone. The woman I married had been leaving in pieces for years. That morning she just finally made it official. I'm Alan, 47. I sell architectural glass, custom panels, smart tinting, UV filtering, the kind of expensive invisible things people don't appreciate unless they're broken. I've lived in the same house in the Hudson Valley for 16 years, though now it echoes when I move. Used to be filled with music, and fights, and burnt toast, and my son's terrible clarinet practice. Now it's just me, and ghosts I can't quite name. You'd probably call me quiet. I'm the kind of man people trust with their garage codes, but not their secrets. I never made waves. I believed if you were decent, the world gave you a fair shot. I don't believe that anymore. There's something about betrayal that rewires you. It's not just the shock, it's the slow rot of realizing you were the only one playing fair, that you'd been loyal to a fantasy, that somewhere along the way, the person sleeping next to you stopped being your partner and started being your audience. I met Lena in the fall of we were both standing in line at a farmer's market in Beacon. She had 3 jars of apple butter and no cash. I covered it. She smiled like that was rare, and when she touched my wrist to thank me, it wasn't flirtation, it was connection, like she saw through the surface static of people and straight into their wiring. She was luminous, that's the word, not just pretty. Lena had presence. You'd feel her enter a room before you heard her voice, and when she talked, she'd lean in just slightly, like your answer might change something in her. She said yes when I asked her out the next week. We were married 14 months later. There was nothing dramatic about our wedding. Backyard, her father's old vinyl spinning in the background, a dog barking somewhere in the neighbor's yard. I remember looking at her and thinking, this is it. This is home. It was for a while. Eli came along 3 years later. After a miscarriage we barely talked about. He had his mother's eyes, and my father's stubbornness. I swear the first word he said was no. But he loved big. Every drawing was a masterpiece. Every hug was tight, almost desperate, like he was trying to anchor himself to us. Lena started to shift around then, nothing dramatic, just thinner smiles, more silences at dinner. A glass of wine became 2, then 3. I thought it was just new motherhood, or maybe the exhaustion we all felt. I didn't ask. I should have. By the time Eli was 7, we were seeing a couples therapist, Shane Darden, pale, polished, too many cardigans. Lena picked him, said he got her. I should have seen it then. How her eyes lit up when she talked about him, how her posture changed in the sessions. Legs crossed toward him, not me, but I chalked it up to connection. I wanted us to get better. I thought she did too. We did 6 sessions. Then she said she didn't think therapy was working, that she needed space. I thought she meant emotional space. She meant physical. 2 weeks later she moved into her sister's basement. I didn't fight it. I figured it was a phase. She said she'd be back once she found herself. She never came back. I don't remember the exact day I stopped believing in reconciliation. I think it was the morning I found the drawing Eli left on the kitchen table. It was a family picture, childish, crooked stick figures, but there were 3 of them, not 4. A woman, a boy and a man, who wasn't me. That's when I started counting back the weekends, the missed calls, the sudden drop-offs, the fact that Eli stopped calling me Dad, and started calling me Alan, like we were distant cousins who saw each other on holidays. I didn't confront Lena, I watched, because something in me, a quiet, old part that had never spoken before, whispered that this wasn't just about love fading, it was about something being stolen. A few months later, I found her laptop on the kitchen counter. She'd stopped by to grab some old photo albums. Said she was in a rush. The laptop was still logged in. I opened it. Not to snoop, just to shut it down. But the last tab was an email. Drafts folder. Unsent. It was to Shane. Can't wait for this to be over. The court date's in April. Once custody is settled, we'll finally be free to do this right. Eli's already calling you Dad. He barely even asks for Alan anymore. There was more. Dates, details, receipts, hidden travel plans. They'd been meeting in hotels and rental cabins under fake last names. Eli had been brought along, not always, but enough. I stared at that email for maybe an hour. Every word was a match, every sentence a spark. But I didn't blow up. I took a photo. Then I backed up the drive. And I called someone. Miguel Rivera, 49, private security consultant turned P. I met him through a friend in construction, said he didn't do domestics anymore. But when I told him about the therapist, he paused. You got a kid involved? Yes, I'm in. Miguel didn't ask a lot of questions, just started digging. He found more than I ever expected. Shane had a prior complaint from a female client. Dismissed. Another from a teenage girl. He'd counseled privately. This one resolved quietly. No record. Miguel even pulled financial records, showing Shane had helped Lena hide income during the divorce to avoid fair asset division. But the worst part, Shane had been seeing Lena privately while he was still our therapist. He'd crossed that line long before she walked out. And the court had no idea. Because I hadn't told them. Because I thought playing fair would win me something. I used to think the court system was about truth, about fairness. Turns out, it's about strategy. I sat in that courtroom for 8 months, losing slowly. Lena had built her narrative. Distant husband. Emotionally neglectful. Unwilling to change. She cried when she needed to. She smiled when the judge joked about traffic. She called Shane our family friend. I didn't say a word about the emails, or the hidden trips, or Eli calling another man Dad. Not yet. I waited. Because you don't play your hand when the tables still spin. You wait until everyone thinks you're out of chips. I gave Lena what she wanted. I signed the initial agreement, supervised visits, counseling. I let her win the early rounds, let her get cocky. Meanwhile, Miguel kept digging. And that's when he found Elaine Elaine was Lena's former roommate in college, a name I hadn't heard in years. But Miguel tracked her down in Vermont. She ran a non-profit for trauma survivors. She was nervous when we called, said she didn't want to get involved. But then she asked one question. Is your son safe? I felt my stomach tighten. What do you mean? She hesitated. Then she told me a story I still can't fully hold in my mind. Back in college, Lena had dated a professor, much older, charming. He told her she was brilliant, special, misunderstood, classic predator playbook. Elaine said Lena changed during those months. Became more withdrawn, obsessive, anxious. The man isolated her, controlled her, then discarded her when another student caught his eye. But it didn't stop there. Elaine walked in on something one night. She didn't give detail, just said Lena was not the same after that. There was a hearing, a quiet one, but the school protected the man. He moved departments. Lena dropped out the next semester, transferred states, and never spoke of it again. You need to understand, Elaine said. Lena is magnetic. She pulls people in, but when she feels power slipping away, she burns everything down. It wasn't a warning, it was a diagnosis. That conversation shifted something in me. Lena wasn't just trying to erase me from Eli's life. She was reconstructing her own history, making Shane her savior, making herself the victim. She was rewriting the narrative, not just in court, but in her son's mind. I needed to stop her, but I couldn't do it with facts alone. Judges don't punish women for loving the wrong man. They punish neglect. They punish exposure. So I stopped hiding. I submitted the email, the unsent draft. Lena never meant for me to see. I attached receipts, dates, statements from Miguel's investigation. I filed for an emergency hearing to challenge the custody ruling, citing concealed romantic involvement with our former therapist, and manipulation of a minor. That hearing changed everything. Shane didn't show up, sent a lawyer who looked as confused as he did terrified. Lena sat stiffly beside her attorney, her eyes darting between the judge and the empty chair meant for Shane. She didn't cry this time. The judge reviewed the material without comment. Then he spoke 6 words that shattered the entire illusion. We'll need to revisit everything, immediately. Eli came to live with me full-time 2 weeks later. The first night he barely unpacked, just stood in the doorway of his old room like he didn't recognize it. He didn't ask about his mother. I didn't volunteer anything. He slept with the door open, and the hallway light. It took 3 days before he said more than a sentence. It was after dinner. We were watching some old superhero movie he used to love. Did you and Mom always hate each other? It felt like being hit in the chest. No, I said. We didn't hate each other. We just stopped seeing each other clearly. He nodded like that made sense. Then he whispered, I didn't want to call him Dad. She told me to. She said you didn't care anymore. I don't remember what I said next. Probably something stupid like, that's not true. But it didn't matter. He knew, because part of revenge isn't just survival, it's witnessing, making sure the people who tried to unmake you have to live with what they did. So I did one last thing. I filed a complaint with the state licensing board, not just about Shane, but about every therapist who ever covered for him. I included Elaine's testimony, names, patterns, the records Miguel found, settlements, gaps in employment. It triggered a full inquiry. 2 more professionals were suspended for failure to report misconduct. 1 resigned quietly, a domino effect. Not rage, not fire, just slow legal erosion, the kind you can't stop once it starts. And Lena, she emailed once, short, no greeting, just, you'll always be small. I didn't reply, because small men don't win. I still think about her, not with longing, with caution, like you think about a fire you survive. The crackling, the heat, the temptation to step closer even as it burns. Sometimes I wonder who she is now, what stories she tells about us. Maybe she still paints me as the villain. Maybe she believes it, but truth doesn't need belief to exist. Eli's 16 now. He plays guitar, not clarinet, wears headphones like armor, laughs in short bursts when he forgets to be angry at the world. He asks real questions now, about love, trust, how you know when someone's lying. I don't give him easy answers, because I've learned there aren't any. But I tell him this, pay attention to who stays silent when they should speak. That's where betrayal lives. And sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone back, it's about refusing to disappear. I used to think healing meant closure. Turns out it just means learning how to walk with the wound. By the time spring rolled around, Eli had settled into a rhythm. He'd started texting me from school again, small stuff. Memes, dumb jokes, inside references to movies we used to watch. But it was like the thread between us was still intact, frayed. Maybe, but not severed. Then the letter came, handwritten, no return address, just my name. Inside 2 sentences, he's not who you think he is, you're being used again. No signature. I read it twice, then burned, but the words stuck like static in my chest. At first I thought it was Lena, one final push to rattle me, a mind game. Then I wondered if it was Shane reaching from whatever professional grave he'd crawled into, or maybe it was no one, just noise. But then Miguel called. There's something you should know, he said, voice lower than usual, about your father. I sat down before I even knew why. He'd been looking into my financials, routine cleanup stuff after the case. Some of my documents raised a flag. A trust fund, untouched for years, had been quietly moved, not closed, just redirected. The source, a company called Glenreach Family Services, my father's company, or what used to be. He died when I was 22, heart attack, left behind a warehouse full of rusted file cabinets and half-kept ledgers. I hadn't thought about that business in 2 decades. Miguel dug deeper. Turns out Glenreach had been quietly liquidated in the early 2000s after multiple lawsuits, wrongful placement of foster children, reports of under-the-table arrangements, 2 unaccounted-for minors that aged out without ever being documented properly. It was buried deep. But here's the kicker. Lena's name was in one of those files, not as a caseworker, as a minor, a placement. She'd been in the system briefly, under a different last name. Her mother had given her up during a custody battle, citing emotional instability. She spent 6 months in a Glenreach transitional home on a street I used to bike past every day as a teenager. I never knew. She never told me. The odds felt impossible, but real life doesn't care about odds. It just grinds, quietly, until everything buried gets uncovered. I didn't confront her, but I understood her now. She hadn't just wanted revenge on me. She wanted revenge on everything. The system, the men who failed her, the homes that never stayed homes, the promises that came with expiration dates. And somewhere along the way, I'd become a stand-in for all of it. That didn't excuse what she did, but it explained the fire. The next time I saw her was by accident. Grocery store. Mid-May. Eli had run in for snacks, and I'd followed a few minutes late. There she was, in the dairy aisle, hair shorter, shoulders tense like she was used to being watched. We locked eyes. She looked away first. I should have walked past. Instead I said her name. She didn't flinch. You following me? She said, cool and practiced. No, but maybe I should have been. She laughed, low and tired. You got what you wanted. What more is there?
You tried to erase me. She blinked. Don't pretend you didn't. You turned our son into a weapon. For the first time she didn't look angry, just hollow, like all her tricks had finally turned on her. I didn't mean to hurt him, she said. But you did. Silence. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. You were never supposed to matter that much. And I think that was the most honest thing she ever said to me. I walked away, not because I forgave her, because I had something she'd never understand. My son, my name still in his mouth, my voice still in his head. But I wasn't done yet, because I knew how Lena moved. She waited. And I wasn't about to let her rebuild her story in another town, with another man, with another child she'd use as a shield. So I made sure every record was public, every court file, every therapist complaint, every anonymous statement from former clients who came forward after Shane's suspension. I didn't push it to the tabloids. I gave it to advocates, lawyers, caseworkers, professionals who cared about reform. Lena didn't go to jail, but she didn't get another license either. Her trauma recovery coaching application was denied, twice. Oregon was done with her before she ever started. Summer came fast. Eli graduated middle school with a cracked voice and a crooked grin. He asked if his mom could come to the ceremony. I told him yes. She didn't He didn't ask again. A month later he asked me something harder. Do you still love her? I wanted to say no, but I've learned not to lie to him. I don't know if love disappears, I said, but I don't feel it anymore. I just remember it. He nodded. Then he asked, will I be like her? And I said the only thing that mattered. You already broke that cycle the moment you asked. One final twist before I close this story. Remember that trust I mentioned? My father's company. Turns out, the fund Lena tried to access under her alias had one restriction in its charter. Any recipient had to be approved by a legal guardian listed at the time of placement. That guardian, my father. Which means Lena knew my name long before we met. Which means our chance meeting at the market was never chance. Which means she'd picked me long before I ever saw her. So no, I don't believe in closure anymore, but I believe in endings, and this is mine. I raised a good kid, I outlived a bad life, and I'm still standing quiet as glass, waiting for the next person to try and break me. Let them. I've already been shattered once, and rebuilt sharp.